world's longest introduction continues. Welcome to Lords of the Long Box. This is TiVo with a very special episode. I have a special guest with us we're going to talk to about their upcoming new comic. I'd like to introduce Try Vuong. How are you?
I'm good. How are you? Thanks for having me on.
I'm excited to have you on. Canadian North. One of your Canadian brethren was in that video right there. Scratch Bastard is a DJ from Canada, very well known. I also Ken Lashley is a friend of mine as well. So he's a comic book artist out of Canada. So well represented. Welcome to the show. We're here to talk about you and your new upcoming comic that drops April 6th, which is Ninjago Garmadon. Did I say that right?
You did. Perfect.
I did say that. So it is the first series, Ninjago series, coming from Skybound imprint from Image Comics, and you are the writer and artist of it. How exciting is that for you?
Awesome. I mean, just working with the Lego property itself, if anything, it's amazing. It's a dream come true.
Yeah. For those who know, I mean, Ninjago has been around, I want to say over 10 years, maybe
I think that's
long.
right.
Yeah, there's been this ongoing series. There was a movie. It's a world history, big universe that they've built. There's fans that are young that have grown into adults, but I believe it's going on series 16 now. But this is a very particular story. But before we get to that, why don't you tell the folks about you and your journey and how you came out to be a comic artist? What were your influence and things of that nature? What started you into geekdom? I guess as a young tree.
Well, I was a child of the '80s, so basically everything that was kind of nerdy back then, comic books, video games, cartoons, I was heavily into. That was sort of like the lifeblood for me. So
What
I
was your
didn't
first
realize
comic you? What was your first comic book you ever bought?
that I ever bought. Oh boy. That I'm not sure. It's definitely something Marvel.
Hopefully the folks at Skybound aren't listening. And just kidding.
Well, they weren't around back then. That was
exactly. Yeah. Most of the guys in Skybound got their start in Marvel, so
Yeah, but the first comic I ever saw was actually kind of bizarre. I was in Hong Kong. I couldn't read. I was way too young to read.
Yeah.
But it was definitely an Ultraman comic.
Holy cow.
Yeah. And
See, okay.
That's
I'm old enough to remember the Ultraman TV series when I was a kid. I'm 50 years old, so I remember the whole thing.
Yeah,
I mean,
pose,
Ultraman. Man. Yeah, that's the pose right there. As little kids, we go around like, it was amazing. So, and I noticed, obviously growing up in the '80s, cartoons, especially video games, and then anime really blew up, at least in North America, right, where we really got like. People start Akira, Ninja Scroll, all these things that started coming across, and I looked at your art style, and it looks to be anime influenced. Is that where you got a lot of your influences from?
Yeah, it's kind of evolved that way. I mean, I would say definitely of the books that are coming out now, there's a heavy anime influence.
Yes.
But I went to animation school as education, and I went through different phases. Like I think every young artist kind of went through different phases. I had my Jim Lee phase, my Mike Mignola phase,
Todd McFarlane flowing cape phase.
Exactly, right. But then also like all the animation stuff I was really into too. So
yeah,
I found myself sort of whatever was needed for the project, I would kind of push in that direction. And
yeah.
But I think there's a heavy undercurrent of anime influence in my work.
And I think anime and manga as a whole right now is probably the biggest it's ever been. To be honest with you, I mean, through YouTube channels doing reviews to people making videos, and I remember as a kid still drawing like the girls with the big starry eyes, like from Macross. I was like that was my thing. It was drawing my thing was drawing eyes because it was like so big and you had to draw these little highlights in them.
Yeah.
So what animation school did you go to?
I went to a couple. There was one called Max the Mutt in Toronto. I went there for a couple of years. But Seneca, the animation program at Seneca College, that was probably my main one.
Seneca in the States, right?
No, that's also in Toronto.
Oh, in Canada. Okay.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a Seneca in the States as well.
Yeah. So when you go to animation school, is it well nowadays it's like digital art, when they go to animation school, right? They go because they want to be animators at Pixar. When you went to animation school, was it learning how to just draw or hone your drawing skills, or was it more doing digital animations, or what entails, I guess, going to animation school besides going to the Andy Kubert school, which you know is for comic books, right?
Right. Well, actually, that was kind of a bit of an awakening for me when I went there. Was that I thought I would get straight into drawing, Pixar style stuff in animation school, but really the amazing thing about animation school is the fundamentals. So it's a lot of
Yeah.
classical drawings, lots of life drawing, things that just let you be a good artist in general, regardless whether you go into animation, video games, you're an illustrator. Those basic fundamentals of drawing are still there.
You got to be able to draw hands and feet, right? You got to be
We
able to draw hands and feet, right?
we drew apples for so long.
And then
How
the drawing of the face where you start with the T, right? I remember because I went to art school too, and I was like, man, this is tedious. You have to draw draw eyes on both sides, because I was like, how do you make eyes symmetrical? This is almost ridiculous. So when did you get your first, I guess, paying gig or professional gig doing what you love, drawing comics
So
or
okay,
writing them? Actually, did you start writing or drawing first?
drawing first. Writing
Mm-hmm.
writing came about 5 years ago with my own stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
before comics, I spent almost 10 years in video games and animation. So comics is kind of sort of the latest evolution of the
Any video
career.
games that we know of that you worked on?
I was working for an indie gaming company called Capybara Games. So if
Mhm.
you're really into that scene, like they did Sword and Sorcery, Grindstone, which is like one of the big ones on iPhone. But
Got you.
yeah,
So a lot of the mobile games on that you would play on the phone.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because I see these commercials all the time, and I'm like, what is this for? Is this for a PS4? Is it PC? And then I was like, oh, it's a mobile game, and then I see people, they're sitting on their phones. They're just like 8 hours later, my phone died, but I'm still playing this game. I'm like,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. You're a big
Um,
console guy, I guess.
um, I used to be. I grew up more of a PC guy, playing like StarCraft.
Oh yeah.
Warcraft, that got me really hooked, right? And then for a while, it went from PCs onto the console world. But I remember in the '90s, it was all about getting a PC rig that was strong enough to play. And I was a real time strategy guy myself,
Right.
So like StarCraft, World of Warcraft, the first Warcraft before it became a massive MMO.
Yep.
It was just like StarCraft, basically build something, go attack something, Zerglings.
Oh yeah, I
So,
remember Warcraft.
oh
2,
yeah.
yeah. I was terrible at it.
Oh,
I loved it.
I only play campaign mode because if once I went online, some kid would kill me in like 10 minutes.
It's brutal. Yeah, it's brutal. Yeah.
It was. On to how you got hooked up with Skybound. There's another title you're working on for Skybound, right? A young adult graphic novel.
That's right. We're working on a story called Everyday Hero Machine Boy, and it was such like a pleasure working with Skybound on that project. And during sort of the tail end of that project, they approached me and said, "Hey, would I be interested in possibly sort of this Lego collaboration?" And I didn't really have to think too hard about that. It's just an immediate yes.
Now, was Machine Boy was that a one-shot graphic novel or was it a series?
It's a graphic novel. It's coming out this September, so it's not quite out yet.
So this will be the first time you see them in comics. So before we go any further, let us show you a trailer of Trey's new comic that comes out this April 6th, Wednesday, on New Comic Book Day. So just check out the trailer. You got to have goosebumps seeing your own story in a trailer format, right, Tree? I mean, that's pretty amazing.
That was awesome. That music's so epic. Yeah.
Yeah, shout out to Skybound for doing that. And they also sent me a preview copy PDF, and I'm didn't really follow Lego or Ninjago at all, but I really enjoyed the story. I was like, yeah, I didn't need to know the back history, but what I found myself was doing was reading up on the back history after I seen this, and it was very the Garmadon character is very how do I say this? Is very Luke Darth Vader ish to me. Seems like I don't know. I mean, what can you tell us about this new series that drops April 6th?
Yeah, I think you kind of. I mean, to be a little bit reductive, I guess you could say he's the the Darth
Anakin
Vader.
Darth Vader. Anakin Darth Vader.
Yeah.
Kind of. Don't want to give
Yeah.
too much away, but yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, well, for sure, he sort of operates in that role in the Ninjago universe. Um, for so actually, it actually makes me feel quite happy that you said that you're able to enjoy the story without knowing too much about the background of the universe, because we worked really hard to make sure primarily it needs to be an enjoyable read, regardless whether you're a Ninjago fan or a Lego fan. If you just love comics or stories in general, hopefully there's something there to kind of just pull you in. But for Ninjago fans, uh, we slot the series right in after season 10. And
Exactly.
that's the last appearance that we see of Garmadon in the show. So this
Yeah, so
picks up his story right where it
yeah,
left
so
leaves off.
spoiler alert, after season 10, Garmadon gets kind of banished. Let's just say that.
Yeah,
And let's just say this is a series that takes place after his banishment. And I didn't know that, just to be honest with you. But I was reading up on it, and I was like, well, this is interesting because to for those who are not Ninjago fans or Lego fans, they think everything is the Lego movie, right? Everything is awesome. That type of level of of humor, which is fine. I loved it for what it was. But when I read this, I was like, this is more serious in tone than I thought it was going to be. What can people expect? First of all, for those who may not know the Ninjago universe, Ninjago, God, I can't say it, but the universe, how could you explain it or summarize it in a nutshell for them because it's a huge universe that it's in.
yeah. So, I mean, for my own personal history with the universe, I've always seen like my niece and nephew watching it in the background. I kind
Yeah.
of watched it, but it wasn't until I started working this project that I really did a deep dive and became like a really quite a hardcore fan of the series. It's it's a martial arts epic fantasy, and I think like the highest praise I could bestow on it is that I feel like it's this generation's Ninja Turtles. Like
I
all
was
this,
gonna say, I was gonna say it's this generation's Avatar: The Last Airbender, because it has those elements also.
yes,
In
actually that might be a
Yeah,
better comparison, but it's
yeah, because 16 seasons that this thing has been around. So literally, kids from when they were 4 or 5 years old are full grown adults now, and there's channels on YouTube that are dedicated to this whole entire universe. So it's pretty amazing. So um
it
I'm amazed at how big the universe has really gotten. And let's take a look at some of the covers for issue number 1. And this drops April 6th, boys and girls. April 6th, make sure you hit up your LCS. FOC is too late, but your LCS probably has some. These are the 4 covers. Tree, you did 3 of these,
I
correct?
did 2 of these. I did the ones on the right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I believe the purple one is the 1 in 10. That was done by I have his name right here, Tom Whalen. So these are the 4 covers, and the series is going to run how many issues?
5 issues.
5 issues. And can people expect new characters that they haven't seen yet that are being introduced first in the comics?
Oh yes, absolutely. Yeah, new
You
characters
you co-
and some return of some old friends and foes as well.
for all you comic collectors out there, you love first appearances. It doesn't matter where it came from. Look for Skybound Image doing this comic. I've read the first issue. didn't know anything about it going into it, and I was like, wow, this is really this is kind of dark. Yeah, but there's humor to it too. I'm not saying it, it's I think it's something for all ages, So and you being the writer as well as artist, how well I guess to adapt to the Lego style is what I guess, because obviously
Mhm.
they have these hands like this,
Yes.
drawing is a little weird, right?
Oh yes. Yeah. It was there's definitely a learning process. Because I had to almost forget their minifigures. I had to forget their toys made of plastic and just
Yeah.
treat them like they're hobbits
No.
or Smurfs, and they're like they have their own universe, but these are real people with claw hands, I guess.
Yeah.
And
I mean, if even the
oh,
animated series has evolved over the years, right? When it first came out, it was pretty rudimentary, I guess,
yeah.
compared to what the animated series is now, and the world building literally takes over. If you really want to go deep, it goes back hundreds of years, right? And then
Mhm,
then it goes a modern era, and then there's weird things like it's ninja martial arts, it's sorcery, but it's also science as well. Like you'll see
mhm.
machine bikes, or you'll see like androids,
Mechs.
or
Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah.
what did you do in research for this comic that specifically is specific about Garmadon?
Garmadon.
Garmadon. You never know
Well,
how to pronounce somebody's name until you actually hear somebody. You're like Garmadon or
it's
Garmadon.
true. It's true. Well, we definitely wanted to go a little bit darker with the comic book, sort of leverage the advantage that the comic book medium has. And like you were saying, that there's been such a long time, like the fans of Ninjago have grown up with it, and I think this is sort of an opportunity to maybe give them a little bit of a mature storyline that the cartoon maybe they've kind of grown out a little bit out of it.
Yeah.
So my own research for it and inspirations, actually, I looked at a lot of Kurosawa movies. Believe it or not, I looked at a lot of
That is a
samurai
very,
movies.
very serious research right there, man.
Yeah, I
You know what?
mean,
I'm gonna do a Shakespearean Rand theme on with Lego figures. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, but it kind of works. Like I was kind of surprised when I was writing it, and then also like my own like I love the original Dragon Ball, pre Dragon Ball Z, just like
Yeah.
young Goku, that kind of a little bit more
Hmm.
grounded action and humor. So those two were probably my biggest influences there. Dragon Ball and Kurosawa samurai movies, believe it or not.
You can't go better than Seven Samurai and Ran and the
uh,
Solitude of Fortress of Solitude, I believe it's called.
it was
But
just called The Fortress.
yeah, the Fortress. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's heavy for to say. If you like Akira Kurosawa, come check out this Lego comic. But I will
Right.
say, I am the medium is for everybody, kids, adults, everything, and I think
Mm.
kids and adults will appreciate this comic for what it is. I really had some Anakin Vader vibes from reading this, as well as if you go back through the series, there's some Avatar: The Last Airbender vibes with like the actual series where they have the
Yeah.
four elements that they build, and reading about Garmadon's origin story, that him and his brother Wu, Garmadon was bitten by a snake or a dragon,
Snake.
and it was
Yeah.
going to take him like years and years and years for it to finally kick in, and then he kind of becomes this evil part of himself, which is kind of Anakin's story, right? If you think he started as good, and then he turns into Darth Vader and eventually redeems himself, becomes a Force Ghost, whatever. But
Yeah.
so after, so what can you promise the folks in this 4 issue or 5 issue series? I guess not promise, but what can they look forward to in the storytelling? I don't want
Um.
to give away too much because
Right.
I want to read issue 2 now. Darn it! After I read issue 1, yeah,
Good. Okay. Well, to not give away too much, I think you'll see a side of Garmadon that you haven't seen before. I think you touched on a lot about. He's a very complex character in the Ninjago universe. That's sort of the appealing thing about him, is that the interesting thing is that he's a bad guy, but he really really wants to be bad, but he's probably not. It almost seems like he's constantly seduced by the good side of his nature.
yeah.
Uh,
He's like an
so
arrogant anti-villain hero. I don't know how to put my finger on it. Like he begrudgingly helps people, even though he says he's evil. Is what the vibe that I get from him, right? Or he's
yeah,
like, I will help you, but I will then rule you over you. That type of thing.
yeah, I think it's just easy for him to be that way, and then you'll see him put in situations where maybe being evil is not really as simple as it seems to be.
Now, this may be a spoiler question, but will we see characters from the animated series come into this series, this comic book series of yours?
Yes.
All right,
I
I'll
guess
leave
I
it
can
at
say
that.
yes.
I don't want to. We don't want to spoil anything for anybody, but I would say go support young talent. Indie publishing. Although Skybound is pretty big now, but there's a lot of titles out there. If you're a fan of Ninjago, I think you'll thoroughly enjoy this, especially those who've been following it since you're a while. If you're an adult, you can share it with your kids and both read it together. I think. I think it's enough to keep adults entertained, and of course, the kids will always relate with Legos. And Tree, I won't keep you any longer. Any last words?
Just thanks for having me on. It was a pleasure to talk to you and talk about Ninjago, and I hope everybody checks out the comic.
Yes, I look forward to your success. I hope it's a smash hit. I hope it sells out everywhere. And Skybound's going to give me some original art. Hopefully, I hope so, somewhere along the lines. But hey, kids, April 6th, Wednesday, New Comic Day. Hit up your stores for Lego Ninjago, Garmadon, 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 okay? Ask for your LCS to make sure you have it. If they are sold out of issue number 1, make sure you ask for issue number 2. If you ask enough, hopefully they'll reprint issue number 1. Go support it. I read it. It's a great read, and hopefully you can too. So until next time, boys and girls, keep digging in them long boxes. Peace out.